The ocean does not remember. It only consumes. Beneath the rolling gray waves of the North Atlantic, where the water turns from sapphire to an impenetrable, crushing black, lies a monument to human ambition and catastrophic failure. We are descending into the midnight zone, a place where the pressure reaches over 6,000 pounds per square inch. Here, the weight of the entire ocean presses down on everything. Seeking the smallest crack, the weakest seam, we are searching for a ghost made of 50,000 tons of steel. We are searching for the Bismarck. At 15,000 feet, the world is silent. There is no sound here but the rhythmic hiss of your own breathing and the distant, metallic creaks of a submersible hull under duress. The light from our arrays cuts a lonely path through the marine snow, the endless shower of organic debris that falls like white ash from the surface world. Suddenly, out of the gloom, a mountain of jagged iron rises. It is the hull. After its final desperate battle in May 1941, the Bismarck didn't just sink. It plummeted, sliding down the side of an underwater volcano, carving a massive scar in the seabed before coming to rest in this eternal darkness. The first thing you feel is the scale. The Bismarck was a leviathan, a floating fortress designed to be unsinkable. Now, it is a skeletal ruin. As we glide along the port side, the massive holes from British torpedoes and 16-inch shells appear like open wounds. The steel is weeping. Massive rusticles, delicate, icicle-like structures of iron-eating bacteria hang from every railing and porthole. They look like orange wax melting in slow motion. The ship is being eaten by the very ocean it once tried to command. It is a slow biological digestion of history. Moving toward the bow, the ship's profile remains terrifyingly intact. The graceful lines of the Atlantic bow are still visible, cutting through the silt. But as the lights sweep upward, we see the empty barbettes where the great guns once lived. During the ship's violent descent, the massive Bruno and Anton turrets simply fell out of their housings, tumbling into the abyss. To see these empty circular voids is to understand the sheer violence of the ship's end. It wasn't a peaceful sinking, it was a structural disintegration. We drift toward the midships, into the tangled forest of the superstructure. This is the most dangerous part of the dive. Jagged cables, snapped railings, and collapsed decking create a labyrinth of snagging hazards. The darkness here feels heavy, almost sentient. In the beam of the flashlight, we see a leather boot, perfectly preserved by the cold, acidic water. It sits upright on a deck plate, as if waiting for a foot that hasn't touched it in 8 decades. Nearby, a porcelain wash basin remains bolted to a wall, a domestic relic in a scene of total devastation. These small, human details are more chilling than the massive guns. They remind us that over 2,000 men lived, worked, and died within these steel walls. As we navigate deeper into the debris field, away from the main hull, the carnage becomes even more apparent. We find a section of the hangar where the Arado float planes were kept. The aluminum is crumpled, like discarded paper. Then, the light catches something different. Not the orange of rust or the gray of silt, but the pale, stark white of calcium. Tucked into a corner of a collapsed bulkhead, we find the remains, a skeleton, partially buried in the fine gray dust of the seabed. It is still wearing the heavy wool coat of a Kriegsmarine sailor. The fabric is tattered, swaying gently in the slight current caused by our thrusters. The jaw is slightly open, a silent scream frozen in the deep. This man was likely a stoker or an engineer, trapped deep in the bowels of the ship when the order to scuttle was given. He never saw the sky again. Seeing him here, nearly 3 miles down, brings a profound sense of claustrophobia. There is no escape from this depth. Even if you could swim, the pressure would crush your lungs instantly. You are held in the hand of the abyss. We move the light away, giving the fallen sailor back to the darkness. It feels like an intrusion to stay too long. We continue toward the stern, which was torn off during the ship's slide down the mountain. The jagged edge of the break is a testament to the incredible forces at play. The rudders, famously jammed by a British swordfish torpedo, are buried deep in the mud. This was the Bismarck's Achilles heel. A single lucky hit that turned a pride of the fleet into a target. Looking at the mangled steering gear, you can almost hear the frantic hammers of the repair crews trying to save their ship while the British fleet closed in for the kill. The atmosphere at this depth is one of absolute isolation. You're further from the surface than most people will ever be from another human being. The water is barely above freezing. Every movement must be calculated. One wrong turn in the wreckage, one snagged hose, and you become part of the Bismarck's permanent crew. The ship seems to watch us. The empty eye sockets of the portholes reflect our lights back at us, as if the vessel itself is curious about the strange, glowing intruders from the world of sun and air. We find a crate of ammunition, the brass shells still shiny in places where the silt hasn't covered them. We find a stack of plates in the galley, stacked as if for a meal that would never be served. The contrast between the mundane and the monumental is staggering. A battleship is a machine of war, but it is also a home, a workplace, and ultimately, a coffin. The secrets held here aren't just military codes or technical specifications. They are the secrets of the final moments, the fear, the bravery, and the cold realization of the end. As our battery levels dip, we begin our slow ascent. The Bismarck recedes into the gloom, its massive silhouette shrinking until it is swallowed by the blackness once more. It will remain there, in the high-pressure silence, for centuries to come. The iron-eating bacteria will continue their slow work, and eventually, the great ship will collapse into a heap of orange dust on the ocean floor. But for now, it stands as a haunting reminder of the power of the sea and the fragility of human constructs. Leaving the Bismarck feels like leaving another planet. As we rise through the water columns, the pressure slowly eases and the blue light begins to return, faint and flickering. But the image of the white bones against the rusted steel stays with you. The deep Atlantic,